Hello, everybody. You're all very welcome to Holding It Together Apart again, and we're delighted to have our second conversation this week with the Reverend Nóirín Ní Riain. She's an interfaith minister, internationally acclaimed spiritual singer, theologian, writer, and musicologist, and Celtic spiritualist. Nóirín, lovely to see you again.
And you too, Declan. And what a strange, surreal time.
It certainly is, and thank you for joining us. It's hard to think we're here now, coming up to the 1st of February, and we're going to be talking a little bit about Imbolc, about Law Féile Brigid and St. Bridget's Day. So it's a very special time of year. I have a lot of very strong memories of it, and something that I'm often surprised when people don't know about the deeper history of it. But we'd love to hear your thoughts on it, Nóirín, and maybe a few little, if there's some
Oh,
music or poetry. We know, first of all, I suppose, Imbolc, which I know it as on St. Bridget's Day. I'm from Carlow, so this Carlow Kildare area where I'm in was very strong for the Feast of Bridget with Wells. But Imbolc, from what I know, comes from Imbolg, in the belly. So the beginning of spring. Would that be right?
it would. It would. Imbolc, yes. In the belly, because of course this is the time too that fields are ploughed up, getting ready for the seed. So the belly also refers to the goddess, which of course was always the earth. So this is the belly, the time of the belly of the goddess, purification, and of course light. So I see your little candle lighting there. So I'm going to light mine here for all of you together, holding it apart too, joining us in spirit, and of course in the spirit of Bridget, whose emblem is fire. That's the name of her name, Bro Syed, the fiery arrow, or the
Ah,
fiery one, the
now that I
exalted.
didn't know. That's new information for me.
Lovely. And so it's a wonderful time for us to be together, I think, because she can be very much our salvation at this time, because there's that lovely little saying to her that would always have been said on Sunday, the eve of St. Bridget, which is, "Here is Bridget dressed in white. Honour, give us money and honour this night." And really, Declan, aren't we seeing Bridget in everybody dressed in white at the moment? In hospitals, our exhausted doctors, nurses, carers. Aren't we seeing Bridget dressed in white in our supermarkets, and people stacking the shelves at the cash registers? Aren't we seeing her in our transport workers? They are sitting beside them. In our Gardaí, who are out tirelessly serving us
Yeah,
in our
very much that whole energy of Bridget, the minder, the protector,
mm,
the healer and stuff. So yeah, absolutely, for the frontline workers, it very much so. Their energy is absolutely. I can see what you mean there.
crucial there. And I think she's going to be breathing new life into this new world that we're now entering. And that, of course, she was very much connected with nature. And that too is breathing new life into us, which is new life of respect, of being in this earth, not as tourists, but as pilgrims, and not as masters, but as guests. So I think she has so much to say to us at this time.
And
And then, of course,
the goddess Bridget, as she would have been known, was so important to people because she kind of was a bridge and brought you from the dark winter into the spring. I know people often hope for the 1st of February, that they wait for it because January is such a bleak old month and it's after Christmas. But coming into this 1st of February, where we're seeing the snowdrops, we're seeing the buds of the daffodils. Obviously, some of the sheep are in ready to use soon. So that goddess Bridget goes back so far in the Irish history and our mythology and in our thinking.
absolutely. And a great Celtic scholar, a great friend of mine who passed over a few years ago, Sean O'Dean, used to say that actually we are connecting there with Greek mythology too at this time, Declan. And the idea of, in Greece, at the beginning of February, which again is known as the month of purification, that the young girls would go out into the fields, the barren fields, holding torches and simulating Demeter, the goddess Demeter, looking for her daughter Persephone, who was taken away by Pluto. And so they're going around there and seeking, bringing in the light. So this is our version of it. Imbolc is our version of it, where we're celebrating, yes, the Celtic, the goddess, and then the Christian woman. I think so now people are calling her, to combine both, Declan, they're saying a holy woman, because the goddess was both holy and the Christian saint, and of course the woman as well. And even though she's not a historical figure, we have to remember that, unlike Patrick, we'll say Patrick wrote his confessions, his confessio, and a letter to Coroticus. So we have those as historical letters. But we only know Bridget, I think, from a 7th century, the first time from a 7th century manuscript, the Annals of Ulster.
Okay,
And
so
there
we
we
don't have any writings from her. She's not somebody we can nail down as a particular character. She's evolved really in so long from the goddess to the myth to the modern female deity we know today.
yes. And of course, the historical saint then was born apparently in 452, a few years before St. Patrick, and she died then about 524 or that. So even though we don't have, prayers or poems ascribed to her, we do have anonymous prayers to her, and I'll share one of those with you later on. But so coming in then to the Christian saint, and of course a triple goddess too of healing, which is so important this time, smith's craft, which is how fire is put to everything to change it, to mold it. And it's almost as if our souls are the anvils of Bridget at this time, our hearts are the alchemy that Bridget is working with. And then, of course, she's the goddess of poetry and imagination too. And so Bridget, of course, was not just the name of one person, but was the name of lots of goddesses.
Mm.
And then, of course, we have her in Europe too, where the word bride comes from.
And she's very strong in the Gaelic, in I suppose Scotland and Wales and England and in France, I know as well. You can see all of the different history, and I think that's wonderful that you connected to the Greek history as well. It shows how a lot of our cultures are so connected. All our humanity is connected in many ways across cultures, because we do a number of these different rituals, or we're drawn to doing the different rituals around this time of year. As we're coming into spring, almost eager and hopeful, getting ready your seeds, getting ready to want to get out in the garden. So many of my friends are kind of saying that they can't wait to get out in the garden and get back going again. So it is in that way, I suppose it's working with nature and working with the healing powers of nature and being able to get back into the land, back into connecting with the little birds, the nesting birds, the chicks, all the lambs that are kind of coming. There's great healing in that, I believe.
Absolutely. And then, of course, you mentioned ritual. Now, holding it together apart, you must make your little Bridget's cross.
Yes, yes.
And get your rushes, because the rushes are everywhere out here now, because it's so rainy. And so make your little cross there, which is very symbolic and very healing. I've just made this morning.
Beautiful.
Just very healing, actually, Declan, to make, because you're weaving there, and that's very much part of our lives. And here then, of course, is the center. This is the eye of that sees everything. And the 4 different directions, north, south, east, and west. 4 elements of the day, night, month, and year. The 4 elements, earth, air, fire, and water. So it's a very powerful symbol for us and of course, if you can't make it, I've been making these now for with my grand nieces and nephews.
Oh, lovely.
If you don't have
the
straw,
reeds.
you can make them out of
and that cross, of course, is kind of recognizable by a lot of people from my generation, because RTE had it for so many years as the opening credits or the closing credits. So I remember it very clearly as something that is very embodied in our culture. Here in Kildare, it's such an important symbol because the home of Brigid, and I do hope to get out and get some reads today, but it's something that's to try and encourage people back. They're very easy to make, and from what I remember is they do link to, in some way, the shape of the Buddhist swastika, and so that I suppose that was destroyed by the Nazi model. But it all of those models, as they link in, there's a kind of a weave in it that's very similar to that that Buddhist type of tradition as well. So really amazing how the people years ago would have used nature to create something that then was so symbolic in the house for the year.
Yes, and so you put this out now tomorrow evening on the eve of Bridget, and she'll pass by and bless it. You put it out. As you will also then, Declan, put your broth, Brigid, this which is the mantle of Bridget. And so you will place this outside with your cross, and Bridget will come and she will kneel at the door. You very often too long ago you'd leave the door open. I don't know if many of you can do that now, but I'll try and leave my door open because I'm way out here in the country.
The country.
And
And I
she'll
know
come.
my grandmother used to have a bed made. My mother used to tell me this. They used to make a bed in the old days for her and leave out kind of food and kind of cloths that she would bless for healing and things like that. So yeah, it's a lovely
And
idea.
beer. She was a great lover of beer. I'd love to give a lake of
Beer.
beer to God, she said. I'd love to give a lake of beer to God. I'd love the heavenly hosts to be tippling there for all eternity.
Well, and what surprised me then is I don't know why some of these great craft beer makers don't come up with it. Maybe there is, I don't know, the St. Bridget's beer because it could be a bestseller. Now, Nóirín, you could be onto something there. So you could start a distillery down in Limerick and then Tipperary. But so interesting. So yeah, there's all of these different elements that connect to her. But as you say, she's slightly anonymous in that we don't have particular writings ascribed to her. But I presume in your career you've come across songs and poetry, or as you say, an anonymous prayer. Is there much music associated with her in that sense, or?
Not that much, actually. I mean, we used to learn a hymn to her in school long ago, and I think it's still taught, actually. Now, I'm not so sure. I certainly know that the music of it is set to a Gregorian chant of to Mary, Ave Maris Stella. I'll give you a little blast to that now. And so it's, but we would have learned this in school, not the Gregorian chant version. I only put this to it later on. But this is Gawim Multa Brida, which is lovely. I sing the praise of Mary, Inin Ile Heron. Let's see if you can see me there. Inin Legachtir I Molamisht Galeri. And so we all praise her. Locran Linach, of course, she's associated with Leinster, where you're living, in
Yeah.
Kildare. That's where her monastery was. And she used to go off, of course, a great woman of peace. She went out one time with the King of Leinster into battle, holding a staff and a lighted torch. And of course, they won the battle. But so she's Locran Gal, she seems the warrior of Leinster. Sight of a light, a flame across the earth. On St. Bridget's Day, we rejoice because we know that spring is here. This is Gawim Multa Brida. Gawim Multa Brida, in the in the lake of Tir, Molamisht Ave Maris Stella, Dei Mater at Weisen Virgo, Felix Celi Porta. Open Galnainach, Soil Shafagnatir, Kjauner Oya Feiram, Tigan Gaire Deum Duv, Garesin Gairo, Ach, Ole Brida, Ach, Ole Brida, Gadoin Arach Eirem, Malamisht Galeri.
Beautiful, Nóirín, the beautiful, and there's a lovely lightness to that. It's almost a freshness. I can't, I don't know how to describe that. It's almost like a fresh air and a fresh, clear air that's coming in, which is beautiful as well. So, and that is that is an anonymous prayer, or it's a piece that you used to learn in school. Is that the one you learned in school?
An anonymous prayer, as I say, the melody, and you're right, it's a beautiful Ave Maris Stella. It's a beautiful little Gregorian chant, you know, and Gregorian chant, of course, has that lightness about it and that elusiveness, and just like a little butterfly, those little chants, they're very beautiful. No, but
Beautiful.
her words then, she penned, apparently it's attributed to her, a 4th century prayer. This is a prayer of Saint Bridget, and it's very beautiful, full of light again, because she was really a great person of trickery too. And be careful, because always on St. Bridget's Day, the strangest things will happen you. And I can't divulge the strange things that happened to me on St. Bridget's Day,
Oh,
but they
very
happened.
good, very good.
So,
I do know a little, one thing just to connect into that. My mother used to be very glad when it was a wet and bad cold day on the 1st of February, because I think the tradition went that the Cailleach, the old hag of a woman, gathered her wood for the rest of the winter. And if it was a bright, clear, sunny day, my mother used to say, well, now we're going to have a long winter because the hag is out collecting the wood. Whereas if it was a very cold, wet day, the Cailleach was still in bed, fast asleep, and the winter was going to be over soon. So that kind of trickery is that you could come across the Cailleach energy around now, which is a whole other interesting side of elements as well.
it is. Absolutely. That's lovely. That's a lovely story. Yes. Yes, that the Cailleach is going around on the 1st of February too. And but this little poem attributed to Bridget from the 4th century has been translated by many poets. But the one I like best is, because of course it would have originally have been in Old Irish, but the one I like best is Brendan Kennelly's. He did a beautiful thing, but there are some beautiful lines in it. The happy heart is true. Bridget says, the happy heart is true. And I think the important word there, Declan, for us is true. You know, that when we're being true to ourselves, we will find peace and happiness. I'd like to gather the people of heaven from all the parishes around, she says. I'd give a special welcome to the women, the 3 Marys of great renown. I'd sit with the men, the women of God, there by the lake of beer. We'd be drinking good health forever, and every drop would be a prayer. And just this morning, as I was thinking of this, Declan, a tune came that I want to accompany this prayer too. I've never done this before, so excuse me if I probably fall into it. So this is St. Bridget's prayer from the Irish tradition. I'd like to give a lake of beer to God. I'd love the heavenly hosts to be together there for all eternity. I'd love the men of heaven to live with me, to dance and sing. If they wanted, I'd put at their disposal vats of suffering. Bright cups of love I'd offer to every man. Sweet pictures of mercy I'd offer with a heart and a half. I'd make heaven a cheerful spot, because the happy heart is true. I'd make the men contented for their own sake. And I'd like Jesus to love me too. I'd gather the people of heaven from all the parishes around, the 3 Marys, the women of great renown. might sit with the men, the women of God, there by the lake of beer. We'd be drinking good health forever, and every drop would be a prayer. We'd be drinking good health forever, and every drop would be a prayer.
Beautiful, Nóirín. It's a premiere for holding it together apart. That's a wonderful, wonderful, again, light, lovely, bright prayer. And I do like this idea that I hadn't heard before about the trickery of Bridget in a way. And I suppose this idea that she wants people to be able to be celebratory, to be this lake of beer and the kind of the fun and the jollity. And I suppose there's a level of that around spring that's so important, because as we come into February, it would have been a traditional time for, wooing people or courting people. You're coming up to Valentine's Day, possibly April Fool's Day, things like that. So it's almost like her energy is to liven things up, to get the fire in the belly, as we say, going again, to get stuff going. And often humor and laughter and trickery and relaxing and good times or whatever is so important in that. And that's something perhaps that maybe has been a little bit lost with her as well, because it can be a little bit lost in the more heavy religious element of it, and not understanding the importance of the joviality and all of that I think actually a lot of the older Irish people really did understand and know. And I suppose in our reflections, it's so important. We're coming into a month, and I think it's the first time ever I felt we were coming into the 1st of February. I've always looked forward to the 1st of February, but here we are facing another 4 weeks, 5 weeks now of what the position we're in, a lockdown. People are really suffering, I think, at this stage. I think it's important, I suppose, that we maybe do encourage people in the month to come to what they can do around the energy of Bridget. Is there anything you would, what you're doing yourself? I mean, I'm sure you're busy with work, but is there anything you're doing particularly you would recommend people in February that might help them to do something new and different?
And of course, just before we go into that, actually, Dick, we must remember too that February the 1st is what we've been talking about. But of course, 2nd and 3rd of February are also very important days.
St. Mary of the Candles, is that right?
That's
Is this a
right,
Candlemas? Yeah.
Candlemas. Well done. Yes, exactly. So again, the whole idea there of the candles, and it was a day, of course, in long ago before Vatican II, a very sad time in the church, a day of purification, when after childbirth you went on the 2nd to the church for the first time to be purified. My mother, well, has indeed your mother.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
sure.
with my brother was experience, yeah, and that of course brings up the whole experience of the mother and baby issues we've seen in January. So again, can we maybe adapt this candles period for healing in a different way?
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll be lighting our candles on that day on Candlemas, and blessing and remembering all that sadness too, and welcoming in the brokenness within us all, but then acknowledging it, and not keeping it out of ourselves, but then moving on to moving on to spreading that goodness around. And then, but then of course the 3rd, then too. Do you remember what the 3rd of February is,
I
Declan?
don't actually. That's one I'm not. I didn't know there was three. I was at the Three Marys, the Blessing of the Throat, Saint Blaise.
Is
Yeah,
now you have it exactly. So a very important day for us, because we used to go to church to be blessed by the priest, but now we can't. So we've got to bless our own throats. And you can do this very easily by setting up your 2 little candles lighted with lighting now, and walk through that. Bless your throat, something like, may St. Blaise bless my throat and keep me safe from all illnesses of the throat. May I only utter words of love and goodness, and not negativity and judgment. So anything like that, and you actually can bless the people around you too by putting your hands gently on their throats, your loved ones. So this is a time of benediction. I love that word, Declan, which comes from bene dicere, which is dicere saying bene is good. So saying goodness, blessing ourselves. So that is certainly something I have learned in this lockdown, is blessing myself. And so every morning before I get out of bed, of course this is a Jewish tradition called Mode Ani. But you thank God for your soul that has been returned to you for another day to do good, because you're not finished here yet. Once you wake up every morning, you still have unfinished business to do that day. And so to keep that in mind, keep Bridget's generosity, because one time, lots and lots of legends around her generosity, but one time this woman came with a big basket of apples for Bridget, and Bridget immediately gave them away, and the woman was very upset. And she said, "But I gave them to you." And Bridget said, "What's mine is theirs." And what a good motto for us. So much of the time we say, "That's mine," whereas what's mine is yours.
So the idea of sharing again is coming in as so important, and how people can share what they have with others, and maybe a time of gifting and giving, but also I suppose more importantly helping people to speak and talk and to share their upsets or their thoughts or emotions so that they don't feel alone.
Exactly. Speaking out that brokenness that for so long we kept silent about, and we just weren't able, I suppose, to share until now.
And there is I think I suppose a real acknowledgement and an opening up of listening and really hearing people's stories, and we need more of that, I suppose, in many ways. And we've seen that in some of the work we've done in Holding It Together Apart. We're delighted to be launching soon an anthology of our creative writing that people sent in, all unpublished. But in it, you can see the various stories of people opening up and telling their own stories, or telling creative stories that, in a ways, are all sharing the human experience and healing in many ways.
Congratulations, Declan. That's wonderful.
Well, yeah, we hope to launch it in the coming month or so. Muirne Bloomer and myself are getting to it, and really, it's a credit to all the people who have been writing. In the sense of, I suppose, just to kind of bring around, what, as you come to the 1st of February yourself, what would you do this year that's be different than other years? Is there something you're going to do? I mean, I think the candles are important. Is there anything we could encourage people who really don't know a lot about Imbolc, or don't know so much about St. Bridget, maybe don't feel overly religious? Is there something you could recommend them this year that could help in the 1st of February? I think the candle again is a lovely one. Is there any other traditions? I mean, is there food or anything like that that's connected to Bridget? Or?
Absolutely. There's Pendy, of course, which is potatoes, something like colcannon. But I think it's just, for me anyway, Declan, it's looking at our situation with new eyes, with the eyes of Bridget, the one of compassion, of caring, of just great understanding, healing, and just being so grateful for the people who are keeping us going on all levels. So I'm looking at Bridget as much more an embodied personage in our world today. I see her going around blessing not just our broths or our crosses, but blessing every one of us here.
And we particularly call it that blessing, I suppose, for all of our frontline workers who, you really coming up to a year now, have worked so hard and are experiencing more than anybody, I think, realizes on the front line. As we come to an end, Nóirín, I think it's a lovely to be able to gather all those little nuggets of new information, certainly from me, and I think a lot of people will be able to find great, particularly in the Lake of Beer. I think that's a great little idea. I didn't know, but is there a particular another song or a piece of poetry you'd like to finish with, maybe that we offer towards as a blessing from Bridget towards all of these frontline, all the people out there who are symbolizing Bridget for us? Is there something you'd like to finish or sing, or something comes to mind?
Well, there's a little Irish phrase that is coming to mind, all right, for people calling in there, Bridget calling in, Mary calling in, listening, as you said there. This is what started in my mind, because of course there are lots of prayers to Bridget. But this one is Bríd agus a brath, an bhaiden mhuire agus amach, an thangel míhall agus a ski, éist le dia awan, which means we call in on Bridget and her mantle to surround us. We call in Mary, the Mother of God, and her Son. We call in Archangel Michael and his shield to protect us. And finally, we listen. We listen. We listen to God alone. And this is a time too for us, despite all the isolation and holding it apart and so on. It's a time for us too to take time. And I just came on a lovely little poem there recently that you might like. It's an anonymous little poem. But it's just a time for yourself, apart from Bridget, apart from Imbolc. Just advised to take time to think. It is the source of power. Take time to read. It is the foundation of wisdom. Take time to play. It is the secret of staying young. Take time to be quiet. It is the opportunity to seek God. Take time to be aware. It is the opportunity to help others. Take time to love and be loved. It is God's greatest gift. Take time to laugh. It is the music of the soul. Take time to be friendly. It is the road to happiness. Take time to dream. It is what the future is made of. Take time to dream. It's what the future is made of. Take time to pray. It's the greatest power on earth.
Beautiful, Nóirín. That's actually a wonderfully multi-faith and non-faith kind of prayer that we can all sit with. And anonymous, not sure where it was written from, but
No.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Well, Nóirín, thank you very much for joining us today to celebrate Imbolc and Lála Bríd as St. Bridget's Day. We hope to be chatting to you soon again. We're going to be looking at the next kind of, I suppose, big phase of St. Patrick's Day. Another 6 weeks away. Hopefully, we'll be in a much better position as a country and we'll be coming out of this. But we'd love to chat to you a little bit more then about the traditions and there's so much around that. We'll have to edit it massively down. But so I leave you with the blessings of Bridget. Have a lovely, happy St. Bridget's Day, and we'll hope to chat to you again and hold it together apart. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching. We'll talk to you soon.
Until next time.